welcome, guys. I'm Jason Quinley. I say a lot of you know me, or some of you know me through our Data Science Association. I'm glad to see several familiar faces, and a lot of you may have even seen some of the volunteers are from our group. So real honored that all of you guys came out. So you may remember a famous paper called "Attention is All We Need," and I want to ask the question of, when you try to launch an AI pilot, is intention all we need? Or maybe we need a little bit more. So first, I do want to say grace, as they say, to begin with gratitude. I want to thank Mark, I want to thank Khalifa and all the organizers just for everything they've done here. Of course, the volunteers like Sid and Ananya and John, many of whom are from our group. And just our Georgia Data Science Association. So again, everyone is welcome to join. And our flagship group is out of Atlanta. And we also have a very active Columbus chapter. So I would love for any of you guys to join. If I were to make a shameless plug, see if I can exit the full screen. And this is our group. You can find us on meetup.com. And we'll soon have a PowerPoint karaoke session where you can practice your improv skills against slides that you may or may not have seen before. Cool. I do have to make one more. Do have to make one more caveat as I work for Aflac's venture capital team. The opinions in this talk will not represent those of Coaches Prime or Saban or the Aflac Duck, but there may be some references to the 1980s Transformer cartoon, Star Trek, and is anyone who does not enjoy Star Trek or Transformers? Okay, good. Okay, you're in the right place. You just need to go, yeah. What are you doing at a tech conference if you don't like things like Star Trek, right? So here's the biggest issue I want to confront. I'm thinking a lot of folks, whether you're on an innovation team or at a startup, in venture capital, we hear a lot of things like, we've got this artificial intelligence solution. No, you don't. Here's what we really have. We have a real ignorance problem. Okay? And the question is, first, is that even a bad thing? And second, okay, well, you've got this solution. Are you really just trying to shoehorn the solution in, or is it solving a true need? And that's something I think all of us have not done a good enough job asking. Is what we're bringing to the table actually relevant, necessary, desired? And that's I think, what I want to really emphasize here. So I'll talk through a few ideas that maybe if you're at a startup or if you are at a large enterprise that you may want to consider. I hope that we'll get even a little bit of discussion at the end. And let's kind of talk through some of these things here. And I could talk about these for like a long time, so we'll just jump right in. Who's heard of a straw man argument? Raise your hand if you've heard of that expression. Okay, all right, got it, several people. A straw man is often seen in areas like politics, where you'll create a weak version of your opponent's argument, like the old scarecrow, and knock it down. All right, I think you've probably seen that, right? You generalize or you limit to some small case, and you try to knock that weak version of your opponent's argument down. I think one thing that a lot of us, especially if you're like a podcast fan where people can go into long discussions, we're starting to see the trend of what some people call the steel man. In other words, can you take your opponent's argument, give it its due, make it stronger, and then contend with that stronger version of your opponent's argument? You bring this artificial intelligence solution, someone doesn't want it, why could they be right? How could they be actually on to something that you're not? If you can contend with that stronger version and then, I'll say, defeat it or surmount it, then maybe you have a good solution on your hands. Boy, I could talk about this a lot. Who's seen the 1986 Transformers movie? I really want to know that. Anybody? All right, we got a few nerds back in the back there. All right, boy, I'll just say it this way. I know. There's a great scene where they're all fighting the evil robots and the Decepticons, and one character says, "Oh, but the Decepticons are in our way," and the other one says, "No, they're our way in." I want you to think about all the times that you have tried to deal with, whether it's bureaucrats at your company, executives, limiting factors, IT, and you feel like whatever they're doing is in your way. Perhaps they're your way in. Here's even a question for you. I know we're not going to get hands. Do you know your boss's incentive plan? Oh, okay, we've got a couple. I wish, probably the next job interview I do, I'll probably say to them, "Can you tell me what's on your incentive plan for this year? What are your yearly goals?" Can you ask that of your IT department? Can you ask that of your legal and compliance department? What are their goals? Maybe their goals include, slow progress on 47 projects, right? If that's their goal, you're going to have a hard time making things work. So I think of this, who's doing ballroom dance? Anyone do ballroom dancing? All right. Anyone like to avoid human contact at all? Now we're at a tech conference. Okay. So, I do some ballroom dancing sometimes, and I remember being asked, "Oh, how many lessons have you taken?" And I said, "Only a couple, but I wrestled in college, and ballroom dance is a lot like wrestling, except for in one, your partner's cooperative. And if you've tried to dance, sometimes, you realize maybe your partner is not so cooperative." So I think about this in that it is kind of a dance. And you need to treat it as a dance, not as a wrestling match when you're contending with the people you work with. And if you do so, you may actually learn something about yourself and your own product. All right, we're getting to Star Trek. Who knows Mr. Data from Star Trek? Need to ask. Okay, all right. So Mr. Data is an AI android and has been very influential. Many people compare Mark Zuckerberg's interview with the US Senate to the way that Mr. Data acts robotically. But Mr. Data in Star Trek is super strong, super fast, super smart. There seems to be many cases where he can't lose. Nothing can beat Mr. Data. When something does, it brings out a point in the show. Mr. Data and the other Star Trek crew members are playing poker, and even though Mr. Data has calculated all the mathematical odds, somehow Commander Riker beats him by bluffing. Now, Commander Riker is smooth-talking, suave, charismatic, all the things that probably some executive at your company is. Are there cases where you didn't prepare properly that you've got to interact with an executive who has his or her own agenda, and now you get defeated because you were not able to call their bluff? Because you were not able to anticipate they were not playing the tech game, they were playing the human game. There's another great scenario where Mr. Data is pitted against a strategy expert in sort of like a 4D chess match. And Mr. Data loses despite doing everything right. And Captain Picard says to him, "It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That's not a weakness, that's life." There may be an infinite series of bureaucratic moves that may stall progress on an AI solution. Again, not because you're doing things wrong, but the other side may not be interested in winning. or may not be interested in the future of the company. All right, let's talk enterprise. It's funny, Star Trek, enterprise, startups, enterprise. Was that intentional? You'll never know. So you've probably heard the Facebook motto, move fast and break things. A lot of people have heard that, especially if you're in the startup world. But I want to caution you, especially if you're at a large established enterprise, you don't need to do that. You don't need to be like these Silicon Valley bozos here. You want to move fast and not break things. So what does that mean on a practical note when you're looking to launch some kind of AI solution? There are many companies where maybe they have to protect their customer data on the individual, I'll say account level, but perhaps they have larger, like if they're in the B2B world, there's customer data that is gladly given out. Who is the representative of that account? So if you're looking to do something like a chat bot, well, that chat bot can freely interact with the HR representative of the account, right? Because that HR representative has said, we want to be represented. Or that chatbot can freely interact with your sales team because your sales team has said, hey, we want to be contacted. So there are lots of cases where there are things like that seem like they're sensitive data, and yet they can be contacted because you have other people you can contact that are not the sensitive in that sensitive category. Another real simple practical idea for integrating is we've all heard function over form. What about function versus platform? To be honest, a lot of platforms may be difficult to integrate, but if you're already using a system like Salesforce or I don't know, some other database system, there may be AI solutions that can plug in naturally to that already existing ecosystem and solve a very small problem. Because what you're really trying to get going is momentum. If you're going to land and expand, right, you got to land first. The last thing I'll say for enterprises, in martial arts, sometimes people call this closest weapon, closest target, right? Looking for these quick wins. But here's another thing I think we really try to do in our groups, and I've been happy to be able to do this today. I call it closing the triangle. And this goes to, you may have seen the footnote about who are the two flippers. So in our data science groups, we try to cultivate people who are A, worth a flip, and B, give a flip. We all know plenty of talented folks, but do they care about the success of others? So as you're trying to install some kind of culture change in your enterprise, or as a startup looking to work with an enterprise, you need to consider, are there other people around who are A, knowledgeable, and B, interested in the success of others? All right, let's wrap about model fit. You know, if you told anyone from the boomer generation that our version of a John Wayne style hero would be a cybernetic truck from another planet, right? They would have laughed 50 years ago. But here we are, and what is the model for many of us in the millennial generation of heroism and ambassadorship? It is Optimus Prime here at the Optimized AI Conference. And why is that? I even think back to the image of Superman. It's not just that Superman is an alien. Superman is the best representation of his culture to a new place. He's powerful, but he's diplomatic. All of you in here are the representation of AI, technology, data science within your company. You are the model that other people see. And so I look to what the actor who played Optimus Prime said when he was auditioning for the role. His brother said, don't be like those other heroes, overly macho, trying to take control. Be strong enough to be gentle Be strong enough to not break things. Be strong enough to help others achieve their goals. And if you do that, I think you'll have some good success. Thank you.